Salutations, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. V back with another casted game of Age of Empires 3. And you know what? After a couple of weeks of highlighting civs like Malta and Italy with all of their crazy mechanics that I do not understand, it feels good to come back to a just nice, simple, vanilla matchup featuring two very, very excellent players. So in the south of the map, playing in the color blue as the French, we have the mighty Grogu, who is shooting this treasure guardian here, but not picking up the treasure, which may seem like a mistake, but it is not, because on this map, the trading posts are only 2 slots apiece. They're on the opposite sides of the map, meaning that they are very quick in terms of XP passes, and they're also very easy to protect. So every player has kind of their own personal small TP line. And what I think Grogu was doing was he was putting down that trading post while shooting the Guardian, making sure his crack shot could recharge, but he didn't want to miss that first pass of XP, now picking up the 45 wood. And that's just that high level thinking that I will probably never have. But it's fun to watch. And in the north of the map, playing in the color red as the Portuguese, we have Chef Sudiste. So as I said, two very, very capable players going at it with two of the most classic civs that we have in the game. I would say Port is still quite a bit stronger than France in the current meta, but France, they're just the PB&J of Age of Empires 3. You know, they're never going to be your favorite meal. They're never going to be the thing that you're craving the most, but you can always go for a little bit of France, right? And so now Grogu, I thought he was going to go for this wood treasure, but instead going for the 100 food, which if you kite it well is actually a pretty easy treasure to take for ranged scouts, because he's going to kill those 2 dogs and then kill that plague doctor. Although he is quite a ways away from the treasure, he is kind of risking the luck of a possible treasure steal. But luckily, Chef is on the opposite side of the map collecting 45 wood, which is also pretty easy to take because these ranged scouts are so horrible in melee. Anyway, let's look at the cards. So we have Fatorius coming in from Chef. No crazy trading post action like we saw a few weeks ago. And meanwhile, Grogu sending the 3 CDBs. So 2 very, very standard cards. And it feels good. Last week, I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know what any of the Italian cards did. So just knowing the meta is just, man, it's a wonderful thing. Meanwhile, it looks like Chef is also going for 75 food of his own. So both players picking up fairly sized wood treasures and large food treasures. But I think Grogu slightly in an advantage right now. Also picking up 40 coin, which is going to help with those market upgrades in transition, which I assume is what he's going to go for, unless we're going to see something crazy from France. I don't see anything crazy here. Has a lot of cav upgrades, so we could be seeing Skirm Goon with a little bit of Cuirassier mixed in. Halfway to age 2, Chef is just a little bit behind. Decided to go with a 14 age up rather than the really quick 10-10 that Portuguese likes to do. And I think he's going to go for a little bit of an economics-based play here, picking up another 45 wood. And let's see if he also goes for a market. It looks like he is not. He's actually focusing on food and coin, which makes me think that we could be seeing an FF from Chef, but we will have to wait and see. Meanwhile, very, very standard for French. It looks like he's gathering a lot of wood, but no market yet. So I'm thinking he might go for the second town center instead, which is also very viable. In terms of native posts, we do have the House of Yagelian. Ooh, I do not know how to say that. Nothing super crazy here. And on the other side, we have same thing. Yeah, okay. So the same thing on both sides. So I don't think we'll be seeing any crazy native play. I think it's going to be the most standard matchup ever. And you know what? Sometimes that's nice. But anyway, both players now getting into age 2. The second town center is coming down for Chef. Let's see where he puts it. Looks like he's going to the opposite side of the map, securing a coin mine and a hunt and protecting that second trading post if he decides to put one down. So not a bad placement. I think, I don't know, maybe a little more defensive. I mean, these 2 trading posts, town centers, are quite a ways from each other. So we'll have to see. Meanwhile, a church coming down for Portuguese. Oh boy, 700 wood coming in, and the Order of Vasa. Oh, is there a Vasa? Hold on. Hold on. Did I miss a trading post here? Oh, yes. Okay, so I missed the trading post over here. There is a House of Vasa. So we will be seeing some trading post action, and we're going to see the Order of Vasa, a really, really awesome technology. He's going to get 25% faster gather rate on his vills and 10% faster on his trickle, which is actually going to be really good for Portuguese. So we'll see if France goes for something similar. But it looks like Grogu going for the 700 wood. And no, also going for the Order of Vasa. I think my thing just glitched out there for a second. Chef is going for the 700 wood, and I think he's going to follow that up. Oh, so 700 coins, 700 wood. That's his third shipment. Okay, I am now grounded. I know what's going on. I was too focused on this villager fight between Cristiano Ronaldo Siu and Grogu El Tierno, which does not sound very French. But Chef is on his way to age 3, so an FF is in the works. The marksman is down, so going to get those very nice cazadores out right away, which, if this does turn into a skirm goon fight, I do think Portuguese has the advantage. Even though France has some decent upgrades in this deck, it seems to me like Cazadors just kind of dumpster your regular skirmishers. And then, of course, Portuguese Dragoons, along with the upgrade cards they get for their Dragoons, are just superior. So Skirm Goon will go the way of Chef if it breaks down into just an age 3 kind of slobber knocker. But both players getting the Order of the Vasa. So going to be utilizing those upgrades as well, and even taking some of the torps from it is Grogu, putting it on that mine. That's very nice from him. Going to be able to utilize that right away. But Chef continuing to get in these hunts, wants to make sure that this town center is gathering resources and that these villagers are staying as close as possible, just in case, you know, any Hussar raids or Cuirassier raids come in from France. Meanwhile, it looks like Chef is now reaching age 3. And Grogu is not far behind him, and he's also getting the Stagecoach upgrade. Let's see if Chef has it. Chef does not. So there's going to be a slight advantage, although, well, not really. They're both going to kind of get it at the same time. They've both got it queued up. Meanwhile, third trading post coming down in a really nice position here. I like this choke point. It's going to be hard to assault because it's got these pawns protecting it from 3 sides. So these walkways are going to make sure that the units get clumped up and are going to be very easy for organ fire, for instance, or anything else that kind of does that connecting bombard splash damage. But meanwhile, the Cazadors, they are out. They are trolling the map. Strolling, not trolling. They're strolling the map looking for any lone CDBs that might be gathering in hunts. I like that play. Immediately slamming down goons and skirmishers of his own is Grogu. So we are going to see really really early skirm goon action from both players. Meanwhile, wood of plenty coming in from Chef. 1,000 wood coming in, and both of his trading posts are on wood. And it looks very, very similar with Grogu, although he is going to send these 8 skirms. And, even getting the winged Hussars, which are a really expensive unit. 200 food and 100 gold, though it looks like he just canceled them. So maybe decided with the Dragoons now on the map, that's not what he needed. And there are Halberdiers as well. So yeah, melee cav are not going to be the thing for France right away. He's going to have to get some sort of advantage either in skirms or in goons so that he can kite those halbs. We're going to see a little bit of a skirmish here. We have 4 versus 5, so it does favor France, although now reinforcements are coming in. 2 Falcons coming in for France, and Grogu actually getting a nice little flank here. The Halberdiers are not in position to be of any aid, and maybe he's keeping them away on purpose so they don't get picked off by the skirms. Halberdiers so vulnerable to skirmish fire. Meanwhile, we have 25 vills for France, 31 for Portuguese, and that's only going to get bigger as Port now has 3 town centers from which to produce vills, although it does mean that his vills are going to be spread very, very wide, and it's going to be hard harder to protect as these coin mines and these hunts start to run out. We have to remember, Portuguese eats through hunts almost as fast as civs like Brit, whereas France can kind of get away with making their resources last a little bit longer. And there are now 2 falconets on the field for Grogu. He does have enough dragoons to protect them for now, and he does have a handful of skirms as well, continuing to go just pure skirm goon, which I think is the right play against Chef. He now has a counter to 3 organ guns with the falconets as long as he controls them well. He has the skirms to match the castors, even though they will be outmatched a little bit, and he's getting goon on goon. I think if he went with anything else, he would just get dumpstered, right? He can't go hussars, he can't go cuirassiers. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. So we'll just see how it shakes out. I think they're just going to continue to mass, and when the resources start to run a little bit thin, I think that's where we'll start to see an engagement in the middle of the map. But it looks like Chef is now moving out with pure Cassadors, and he's actually very lucky no melee cav are out. But, you know, he does have his goons and his halbs in range. But he now has a bead on the French army. They're assaulting this town center. We'll see what happens. Skirmisher's able to drive him off a little bit. And again, it's gonna be a lot of skirm versus Cassador this game, unless somebody does something crazy. But Grogu, nothing super out of the box coming out here. Very, very standard cards. And we are seeing a full engagement. We do want to see these Falcs get involved on those Cassadors. Come on, Falconets! Oh, they almost popped one off. But skirm numbers, let's take a quick look. We have 17 skirms for Grogu and about 20 Cassadors for Chef. So a small advantage there. Meanwhile, both players continuing to fan out across the map. Portugal just little red dots all over. And I like that he's putting houses at these checkpoints. He's going to be able to see the French army no matter what. There are not going to be any raids coming in on his town centers that he will not know about. Meanwhile, more Cassadors, more Dragoons coming in. And now we're finally starting to see melee cav come out from France, but he's also bagging a lot of resources right now. And he does have a few Age 4 cards. We might be seeing a transition to the Industrial Age by Grogu, and I think that's the smart play. I think if he just tries to match Portugal in Age 3, he's gonna lose, right? He's down on town centers, his skirms aren't as good, his dragoons aren't as good, and this is kind of the game that Portuguese wants to play, right? They just want to slowly overwhelm you with their economic advantages. So I think possibly saving up for Age 4 might be the play, though if he can get away with it, because there's a pretty significant Portuguese army, and now the Falconets are getting engaged, and we do have some of these melee cav trying to keep the Cassadors at bay, but there's so much anti-cav here. Lots of Dragoons, lots of Halbs, but now the main force of French Dragoons are getting involved, and it actually might sway the way of France here, though the organ guns are still operational. We have one in the back, did quite a volley on these skirms. Now all the organ guns are down. There are more melee cav coming in. The skirm numbers for France have been depleted, but still plenty of Dragoons, and both sides deciding to disengage, but not a bad trade. I think France probably got away a little bit cleaner with that one. We did see Portugal lose all 3 of his organ guns. He did lose quite a handful of Cassadors, and he lost most of his Halbs as well. Meanwhile, France, a lot of food in the bank, nearly 2,000 food, though he's only at about 300 coin. Does he have 1,000 coin in his deck? He does not. So if we are going to see Grogu go to Age 4, which I think is the play right now, we're going to have to see him macro for a lot more coin. Meanwhile, an artillery foundry is down for Chef. Culverins are being queued, and more Dragoons are on the way. So really nice job by Chef. He's making all of the adjustments he needs, and he's continuing to play the game that Port is good at, this prolonged Age 3 slugfest, which eventually is going to sway in his favor. It's 59 vills versus 34. Now, granted, those are CDBs, but still, that is a huge difference. And now there it is, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like Grogu has clicked into Age 4. Looks like he switched all of his TPs to coin, and he sent all of his CDBs to coin as well. He had 16 CDBs on coin, so he was able to gather it very, very quickly. But now we'll have to see, because if Grogu pushes in while this age up is in queue, he's going to be able to overwhelm the French army. And yeah, I mean, Chef is continuing to invest in units. He's sending upgrade cards. Team Gunpowder now coming in. And I think that's the only upgrade he has sent so far. Yeah, so only one upgrade so far, no Dragoon combat, which would be really, really good in that next engagement as both players have Dragoons, and France is starting to mass quite a bit of melee cav. Meanwhile, Grogu has not sent any unit upgrades at all, but once he gets into Age 4, going to be able to get those guard upgrades, those Voltigeurs on his skirms, and his guard Dragoons, which are just going to be absolutely insane. And we'll see what he decides to go for. He might go for the factories, he might go for the heavy cannons if he just wants some punch immediately. But Chef kind of just sitting back, maneuvering around with his army, not doing a ton. And I think he kind of thinks he's in a great position here, which he is. But he's got to start wondering, all right, what is my opponent doing? He hasn't pushed. He knows I'm Portuguese. He knows I'm going to win if we both just sit here. He's got to be aging up. And now we see it. The push is coming. He's starting to send his units forward. He wants to probe. He knows he's been making units while Grogu has been investing a ton of resources into aging up. He was even able to see some of those units there, I think with some leftover halberdiers. He sees a lot of veteran dragoons, some melee cav, 2 falconets still up, but 2 culverins are coming in for Chef to try to take those out. Looks like that coin mine has been depleted, but the main engagement is here. The melee cav going straight in, and the dragoons are going to be able to deal with them relatively quick. But even though they're facing against dragoons, now that they're actually in close combat, those cuirassiers are actually doing quite a bit of damage here. And now that the culverins are getting packed up, it looks like they're going to be taken out by the dragoons, and there is still 1 falconet left. Let's see if they're able to kill it before they go down. No! And now the 2 heavy cannons have arrived. Ladies and gentlemen, this looks like a disastrous fight for Portugal. He's starting to kite with his Caçadors and his dragoons, and actually able to pick off quite a few French units that decided to pursue. But now this massive artillery and the skirms that are still left for France, there's enough skirms here to dissuade all of these dragoons. So things are looking really good. That was a nice hold by Grogu. And if Chef had been able to break the back there and leave those 2 cannons isolated right as they popped out, I think it would have been GG. But now the factories are both queued for Grogu, along with 5 dragoons as well. And look at that. The first thing he slams down for his upgrades is the Voltigeurs. So let's see what Chef does to counter this. He's in no position to macro for an Age 4 upgrade himself, even though he has more Age 4 cards than Grogu does. But now we see 2 heavy cannons and a falconet now assaulting this forward Portuguese town center. And the Voltigeur upgrade has come in. The cavalry are here, but can they get a sneaky snipe? Yes, they did. But the thing they sniped was the falconet, not the heavy cannons. And now the French player, Grogu, knows that those culverins are there, and he's going to be much more careful with his heavy cannons. So a nice pickoff, but I think Chef would have much rather gotten one of those heavy cannons as well. Looks like he's sending spice trade now. Or no, economic theory, sorry. Sending economic theory, gonna be good, but it does mean he's gonna eat through his hunts even faster. And if we look at the map here, he's got 1 hunt here, 1 hunt here, and yeah, he's really only got 2 natural hunts left on the map before he has to start pushing into Grogu's side of the map, which is gonna be a little bit risky. Meanwhile, getting what seems to be veteran hussars, so gonna switch to melee cav of his own. I don't know if that's the best play, since you're facing off against veteran dragoons and veteran cuirassiers, which are probably going to get a guard upgrade here. No, Grogu might actually not have the resources to get any more guard upgrades. He might have just gotten the guard skirmishers, and that's all he can afford at the moment. He's got both factories producing heavy cannons. And now, as I say he won't have enough resources, he clicks in guard dragoons. I mean, the way these guys macro their resources and the way they're able to gather resources so efficiently just blows my mind. But now we see Chef. Oh, the dreaded transition to mills has begun. 1 mill going down, 2 mills going down, 3 mills going down. That is a huge investment. 1,200 wood. And he currently has 22 villagers on wood, 47 on food, 20 on gold. He's got 95 villagers versus just 35 of Grogu. Grogu's got to be aggressive here. If he allows Chef to macro and get up to Age 4 himself, game over. He's almost triple villagers of the French player, it's just not even going to be a contest. But now he's moving out. He's got 1, 2 heavy cannons, and 2 more are going to be here soon. And he does have the guard skirmishers, which are just going to dumpster these veteran Cassadors. As good as they may be, these are just veteran Cassadors. They have no further upgrades on them. No, I'm sorry. They do have 1 upgrade. But even still, not going to make a huge difference. And it does look like this town center is going to go down, but now the Portuguese army is on the move. He wants to move in. He's got some veteran hussars to mix up his composition, but it looks like Roku is being very defensive with his cavalry force. He does not want to leave his heavy cannons vulnerable to any charge from those dragoons. I think he's just going to use his superior skirmishers, and I think he's fine to just take these little fights. 2 more culverins are now out for Chef. And yeah, I think we're at kind of an impasse here, right? Chef is now going up to age 4 himself, but that does mean he's going to have a significant lack of resources to hold off any French push as it comes in. And it looks like it's coming in right now. Another heavy cannon being added to the mix. And if he cannot, oh, look at that 4th heavy cannon coming into the mix. Holy cow. Oh, heavy cannons go. Oh, that is insane. But more Voltigeurs coming out, and even Minutemen being called. So Chef really investing a lot into this hold, but as he continues to fight on the front line, these heavy cannons just doing so much damage in the back, and they're able to rip down this infrastructure very, very quickly, much quicker than falconets even. And wow, and it's not like mortars, right, where they're only a danger to your infrastructure. If he charges in those Cassadors too close, he could lose 5, 10, 12 Cassadors in 1 volley. But now the veteran hussars are coming in, and he's been saving these veteran dragoons, now going to use them. But now Chef is in age 4, and out pop the Cassadors, and the culverins in the back are going to be hopped on by the melee cav. No, he's got guard dragoons. He's putting them into melee. That's such a smart move. He's going to take down those culverins very quick, and now his heavy cannons can move forward unimpeded. He did lose 1, but 3 still remain, and that's going to be plenty to tear down a lot more of this infrastructure. And just as I say 1 goes down, another one joins the fray, and we're seeing the effect of those factories. But now the French army is starting to thin out just a bit. More hussars on the way for the Portuguese player. And I think what the French player Grogu has to do now is he has to target his opponent's military infrastructure. Make sure that those reinforcements are delayed. That'll give you more time to attack his economy. So rip down this barracks and then rip down this town center. But immediately another stable going up for Chef. And he's just continuing to pump out hussar. Heavy cannons of his own on the way. And hopefully he does not pop them. He did. He popped them out right at that town center, which actually might be the way to do it, though it does mean that they are going to get shot down relatively quickly. 4 versus 2. And now only 1 remaining, and that one is going down as well. And now the French army, even though it is very small, even though the cavalry force and the infantry have been depleted, there are just so many heavy cannons here that even without support, the Portuguese player cannot move in on it. 4 heavy cannons will decimate these Cassadors before they're even able to kill a single cannon. Oh my gosh, so much action. But, I mean, this is exactly what Grogu needed to do, right? He needed to push before Portuguese was able to utilize that age 4 transition. And even though Chef is now in age 4, he's lost so much infrastructure. He's lost 2 town centers, a bunch of military buildings, and the French reinforcements are continuing to pile on, because we have to remember at the same time, Grogu's economy is under no pressure. He's got 2 factories working away, and Chef has not been able to get out any of his factories yet. He had to invest in the heavy cannons, and those have now gone down as well. He did send 1 factory, so maybe 1 factory is going down? Where is it? Where is this factory? I gotta find it. Where is it? Am I blind? Oh no, there it is. It just popped out. So 1 factory is coming out for Chef, but I don't think it's going to be enough. There are still 4 heavy cannons, and does Chef have any culverins in queue? He does not. He's continuing to pump out hussar, but these are veteran hussar taking on guard dragoons. They will be annihilated, and the Cassador support does not mean anything because they will just get obliterated, and as these volleys come in, you're going to start seeing it. There are a large number of hussar here, But again, these Guard Dragoons, it's not even a contest. Even though the Hussar are getting in hand to hand. And, well, actually, now that I say that, 2 heavy cannons have gone down. And I'm wrong, he holds it. Chef is able to just mass. Oh no, oh, that's why, he had Guard Hussars. What was I thinking? I thought those Hussars were veteran, and then I realized how good they were doing, and I was like, holy crap, these are guards. So, Guard Hussar in melee versus Guard Dragoon, actually a pretty good unit. I hope you guys don't come to watch these videos for stellar commentary, because I tend to disappoint. But now, Portuguese does have a bit of momentum here. Though I wouldn't say he's won this game yet, not by a long shot. He's down to 69 villagers. He lost a ton of villagers in that raid. All of those villagers that were on that mill were pretty much decimated by the French army. So even though he still has a villager advantage, it's not nearly as big as it used to be. Grogu now has 45 CDB, which means the economic gap is quite a bit closer, and he does have that extra factory as well. So both economies very, very strong. Let's see the economic upgrades. Looks like Grogu has Royal Mint and Refrigeration online, and meanwhile, Chef has Economic Theory, Fetorias, and that is it. So 2 economic upgrades per piece. But another thing we have to remember is that well, actually, let's watch this fight here, because these Guard Dragoons and Guard Hussars are about to go at it. Meanwhile, Age 4 Skirms versus Age 4 Cassadors as well, which at that point, I think Cassadors might once again be the superior unit, but with these Cuirassiers, which are also Guard upgraded, it might be a little bit harder for them to target the other skirmishers of Grogu, and these guys are tanking so much damage, doing so well, and it takes all of these Hussar just to take out a few of the Gendarmes, and meanwhile, the Guard Dragoons were just able to annihilate them. So that's a ton of resources now down for Portugal, and that was a ton of food, which leads me to the point I was going to make before. The amount of food that Portuguese can make at the moment is actually not a lot. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 5 mills and a couple of estates, which is good, but another thing to consider is that France has also made that transition, and I believe France also still has, no, okay, so both players have cleared out the natural resources on their map. We are at the 27-minute mark, and now it's all down to who can boost their mills and their estates, and who can utilize their very, very strong units better. And so now we're going to see, it looks like Grogu's going to go for a raid here. He's going to be using these really quick moving Dragoons. He's going to take out that Explorer. And it looks like Chef is trying to get balance of powers. He wants to equalize his resource stockpile. So possibly wants to either get more wood or get more coin, or possibly use it as a way to get more food. But that town center is now, trading post is now going to be taken down. Hey, look, these Torps are still here. These Torps that came out at like the 6th minute of the game, they have lasted the test of time. Granted, they're not really doing that much anymore. But we do have more Gendarmes roaming around the map. Gendarmes? I'm not sure. But these Guard Dragoons taking out the trading post, and they are now into the cookie jar. Meanwhile, Chef making more Guard Dragoons of his own, and Grogu is continuing to make melee cav. And I think now we're going to see the Gen/Gendar spam coming out from France. Such a good unit. More skirmishers on the way as well. He has a decent mass of skirms, enough to threaten those Dragoons. And look at how many villagers just went down there. I don't know if Chef was looking at something else, but I mean, there was an outpost right here. He could have garrisoned them. But now he's down to 68 villagers, 67 villagers. And Grogu is all the way at 50 vills himself. And here come the Guard Hussars, but they're not going to be able to do anything against this amount of Guard Dragoons. And now we're seeing Cassadors go down, and that is the game. Chef calls it, and Grogu able to kind of outmaneuver and outpace the Portuguese player, which I did not expect. When we were about halfway through the game and both players were kind of sitting in Age 3, I thought Chef had that one in the bag because he was simply just going to outscale the French player. But Grogu going up to H4, getting an early advantage, getting his factories down right away. And I think that timing is what allowed him to get the win here. But let's look at it in more detail. Guys, follow me to the postgame. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the postgame, and a substantial resource lead for Chef, about 10,000 overall. But just like last week's game in the Malta versus Italy, I think this came down more to timing and tech than it did to just raw gathered resources. And I think you can see it when we look at the military tab. Yeah, so we see 191 units made for Grogu, and those 191 units killed 282 Portuguese units. Meanwhile, Chef made 227 units and only killed 175. So actually a negative ratio there. And then when we look at the amount of infrastructure lost with those heavy cannons, 14 buildings destroyed. And a lot of those were expensive. Some of those were mills. A lot of those were military buildings. That's a lot of wood to gather and replace, especially when you're under assault and you still have to make units. Meanwhile, Grogu only losing one building, and I think it was actually that native post early in the game. And when we go to the timelines, we see that, I mean, the villager, this is insane, right? Chef is at his peak, is at 99 villagers, and then he starts to lose a lot of them in that assault that Grogu made on the base, goes all the way down to 67, starts to get up a little bit, and then falls down again. So a huge loss in economy there. And I think losing that many villagers in that assault and losing those town centers and losing those mills, it's just something that even Chef's economy, as good as it was, he wasn't able to recover. Meanwhile, Grogu's economy was basically unbothered after the 8-9 minute mark. He didn't have to move villagers. He didn't have to worry about losing his factories or rebuilding buildings. He just let his economy work for him. And here's the big thing. When we look at the times of the age ups, right? So H2, very, very similar. H3, very, very similar. And then look at this. Grogu gets to H4 at 15 minutes, and Chef gets to H4 at 21 minutes. That's 6 minutes of upgrades, of factories working, and I really do think that is what made the difference. I think if both of them had stayed at H3, Chef would have won that by a mile. But because Grogu made the smart move to age up early and he got away with it, I think that's what won him the game. But guys, another great, awesome vanilla matchup. Oh, those are my favorite. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. I will be back with another game next week. Until then, have a great day. Have a great life. See you later.